Hello everyone, I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Gather around. We're going to have a little discussion about 4 relatively new palettes at Sephora. I've been playing with these for a while and my decision to include them all together in one video isn't really because I find that they especially have anything in common and I'm trying to like compare one to the next. It's more or less just the fact that I've realized what I think about all of these and I thought it might be fun to just kind of provide some swatches and some mini reviews and just a little discussion about them all in one video. I found a lot of positives quality-wise across all of these palettes, but there are a few drawbacks here and there, sometimes with shade selection, sometimes with the textures of maybe certain formulas in the palettes. Might be a few things that I question here and there, but I'm gonna go ahead and start with the one that impressed me the least, I'll say, and it is the Crystal Drama palette from Bobbi Brown. Now, I don't think this is an all-around bad palette, and as I open it up and I look at this color selection, I actually think it's very, very pretty, because I am definitely one who can enjoy these kind of dusty lilac shades happening here, but I also love the warmth and sort of this golden tone that's enclosed all within one palette. But there are a couple of things that are a bit of a problem for me. First off, when you look across the top here, we've got quite a few light shades, and when you have this palette in your hands and you really look closely at the finishes, yes, there are some different textures. One might be labeled as one of their classic matte eyeshadows, one's a metallic eyeshadow, one's a sparkle eyeshadow, but ultimately, when it comes down to getting these somewhat sheared out on your eyelids, certain ones look a lot alike. In a relatively small palette, I mean, I've got 3 shades here where I could practically use those interchangeably. They look so much alike. Another problem that I have with this palette is depth, and I used it for my look today. The first few times I used it, I found myself always being drawn to these kind of purpley and cool colors up here. And a time or two I did mix in some of these, but today I wanted to just do like a purely warm look with the more golden colors. And what I found time and time again is that there's nothing dark enough in this palette. I feel like for all of these shades they could have swapped out maybe a couple of light shimmery colors and given just a rich matte plum or a really nice deep dark warm brown, let's say. Just something that kind of allows you to break up some of the shimmer that's happening with this palette. I'm not knocking the shade Eggplant right here. I think that's gorgeous. Cognac is great, and I've got some Cognac in my look today as well as a lot of this shade and some of this in my crease. But I find myself wanting at least the option of having a little more depth there to really set off some of these highly shimmery colors. So it's a palette that in my opinion has gone a little bit overboard on the light shades, and I think at least we need to have a couple of dark mattes. The only 2 true mattes that you have in this palette are right here. This shade called Dusty Lilac and then this one called Toast. Another thing I'd like to point out is that there are a handful of shades in this palette, at least from my research. There might even be more. It's possible I missed some, but I went through Bobbi Brown's actual website where individual shadows are sold, and I found that Eggplant, Rose Gold, Toast, and Cognac are all available individually. And for some people, maybe those who collect a lot of Bobbi Brown eyeshadows, maybe you don't like to see them repeated in different palettes, or maybe you think, gosh, I've been wanting to try those kinds of colors, it's great that they're in a palette. A lot of people might have a different perspective on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I just wanted to point that out. For me personally, I don't own a ton of Bobbi Brown singles, but I do happen to have 2 of these. I have Rose Gold and I have Cognac on their own, and those do happen to be a couple of the strongest shades in this palette. I really am not hating on Bobbi Brown's formula as a whole because I think there are so many things going right here with the textures of certain metallic shades. I do love the way those 2 mattes that they give you in here feel and apply, but not only am I not in love with the textures on some of the lightest shimmery shades, I also think we could have done without just the sheer amount of those shades in the palette. And I think I mentioned in a vlog that this palette, color scheme wise, kind of reminded me of Too Faced White Peach. Hard to not get a glare on these, but a main difference I think you'll notice is that the White Peach palette has more like peachy pink tones in there, although they also do have kind of that goldeny warm peach. They've got a deep color that kind of reminds me of that Bobbi Brown Eggplant shade. If you kept up with my past videos, you might have remembered I didn't give this palette a glowing review because I found quite a bit of inconsistency in the texture of the shades. So a little more pinkness happening in that one. That's the main difference that I noticed. Next up, I want to discuss the Violet Voss hashtag palette. I was really drawn to this palette when I saw it on Sephora's website. I do love what I'm seeing here in terms of just the range of color and that sunset vibe. You know, oranges, purples, golds, all kind of mixed within one palette. It was just really eye-catching to me, number one, and number two, I'd never used a Violet Voss palette before, so I thought, now's the time. I'm ready to jump in. Like, this one has finally really drawn me in. I'll point out here that the top row is all matte, and then there are just a couple more mattes sprinkled throughout. This color called Goals and then TBT right here are both matte shades. Everything else is really, really shimmery. This is a palette that's full of what I would call statement shades. Those mid-tone colors that, you know, in a swatch, they're just gonna practically bounce off your arm. You know, they are so glowing, so intense. I really don't have quality complaints with this palette because I do feel like all of these shades are really what you see is what you get colors. There's nothing that was really disappointing me or not turning out to be what I expected. So from that standpoint, I really like it. I also do like that they made the effort to give you some really nice basic shades. But here's what I want more of, guys. And this is what allows, I think, some of these statement shades to really be shown off and look their best and give you the biggest variety. We need more dark colors. And now I know they've given you a black and they've given you some kind of mid-tone browns and warm stuff here, but I'm talking like a really dark purple or a really dark red, a very, very rich brown. And if you're not with me on this statement, just hear me out here. I've tried a lot of eyeshadow palettes and it's so easy to get like sort of knocked over by the beauty of some of the highly shimmery shades that are in a palette. And they are doing that formula right and they are delivering on the intensity. But what can create the most potential for variety is having dark shades that can kind of layer up over some of these shimmers and completely change the direction of the look. Now, yes, they did give you a black in here, and that's nice, and that can create contrast and that can create darkness, but having maybe a few more dark colors in here can, I think, really change the game, like layering a dark matte red over one of these golds. That could be gorgeous. Having a really rich dark plum to play with over some of the reds and other purples in here. It would create an option for so much versatility because when you have a good quality matte dark color, you don't just have one color there. You tend to have a range. I know I've said this before with different Viseart palettes. I think it's the purple in the amethyst palette. You know, it can look one way full on. You can then sheer that out and it can have like about 3 or 4 extra levels, you know? And so I think there's always value to have some rich dark mattes in a palette, especially one that has this many bold midtones. We need some more richness to balance it out. I mean, we have literally like 5 variations on metallic gold here. We could have lost a couple of those in exchange for a couple of really deep dark matte colors that can switch up the looks. I have done some looks that I thought were really beautiful with this palette. I mean, I'm a purple fan, I'm a gold fan, I'm a rosy gold warm lover, so I am behind the overall concept here. I just think there are a couple ways it could be done a little bit better, and sure, pull in those shades from other palettes, make use of other colors and singles that you've got, combine palettes, that's completely legal. But you guys know when I'm sitting here reviewing a palette, I'm looking at the palette itself and saying, is this everything I need? And this just lacked a little bit. Next, I want to chat about the Urban Decay Backtalk palette. So you've probably seen a lot of images of this floating around on social media. Urban Decay is kind of working with a similar concept here to what they did with their Shapeshifter palette, which had like powders on one side and creams on the other for contour and correcting and whatnot. I thought that was a brilliant packaging design, and I think this is another brilliant packaging design because look how compact it is ultimately. No wasted space here, and the mirror does come out. So if you'd like to, you know, lay your palette flat, hold your mirror however close you need to your eye. You know, when I'm applying mascara, I like it close. I just think that's a nice touch, and I love a good combo palette. I like something that's gonna give me just utmost versatility. So here on the blush side, you've got a matte blush with this shade called Double Take, and then you've got a shimmery blush, which I am wearing that today. That's in the shade Cheap Shot. Brings out some of those kind of plummy, actual natural blushing tones that our skin gives off. I think that's kind of cool. You got a couple of highlight type shades. Low key for me is something that looks pretty just sort of layered right on top of where I would place blush. And then Party Foul. Party Foul, I love that shade just as a statement type highlighter. Like, it's very bold. I haven't always had the best success with Urban Decay's highlighters, but I really do like that shade. So I thought the face products were really strong here, and I do enjoy the eyeshadows as well. I tend to be a fan of a color scheme that is gonna give me some red, a little bit of purple, a couple of kind of mid-tone mattes, this verging on a little bit deeper matte here with the brown. I thought that WTF shade is so strong, and even 180 here. While this brown does have some shimmer to it, I do feel like it's rich enough to create some decent contrast with these looks. Still could have maybe used like one really, really deep dark color, but you guys probably already could have guessed that by now. But as a whole, I have enjoyed the looks that I got with this. I felt like it was an easy, everyday, you know, you throw together the look. You're not overwhelmed with possibilities, but yet you do have distinct possibilities here. These two shades called Shade here and Attitude, I think are wonderful assets to this palette because you can go a little bit more pinky with it, you can go a little more rusty and warm, and you can also forego those shades entirely and keep it a very classic neutral eye. Now, Bare and Curve, I feel like these shades swatch pretty solidly. These are just light-ish shimmery eyeshadows, but I don't love the way they apply on the lids. I think they feel actually a little bit dry, and I would like them to just pack on a little bit better. I wish those shades here were more the texture of these deeper shades because those feel like really soft, buttery, smooth metallics. But that's probably my biggest complaint with this palette, and all in all, I mean, if you're looking for a multitasker, if you like the idea of having so much in one and those color tones that involve kind of mauve-y, getting into reddish and purple shades, if that really appeals to you, I think you'd enjoy this palette. It is brilliantly designed, and if you've ever been confused about like, oh, what blush looks good with this eye look or whatever, I kind of love that it's all there for you and it takes a lot of guesswork out of it. So I really do like that Back Talk palette, but I would say that my top palette out of everything I'm going to talk about today comes from Pretty Vulgar, and it's their new Phoenix Rising palette. A lot of their stuff has a bird theme on it, so there you go. If you feel like this brand is coming out of left field, they are fairly new to Sephora, and I did a video months back reviewing a lot of different things. They have several other palettes, face products, lip colors, blushes. I've already reviewed actually quite a bit from this line, so I will include a link to that video below if you're curious. But this latest palette is really impressing me. First off, I think it's beautiful just to look at, and I do like their little birdcage design here. The way they lay out shadows in their palettes, I think that's really fun and creative. But even just to completely disregard the cuteness, I think this is one of the best, like, rich palettes. Like, it is just rich, rich, rich is the word I would use to describe it. I've been asking for deep matte colors because deep matte colors can be some of the most transformative colors in a palette. Here we go. We have them. We have ways to go warm and kind of brownish. We've got gorgeous burgundy. We've got purple, really, really dark red, and perhaps one of the darkest, richest plummy reds that I've ever seen. I feel like the quality of these shades, both shimmers and mattes, is so comparable to Viseart. I mean, the smoothness, the evenness of them, the sort of little bit goes a long way pigmentation, and yet they're not overly flaky and just creating copious amounts of fallout. That's not an issue for me. And at a glance, I think you look at it and you think, gosh, that is kind of a dark palette, but there truly is a lot of balance happening here because you've got light shimmers. This peach, this Always Rising shade is just gorgeous. And then there are a couple of other really nice rich shimmers up there. Here's Desire right over here, this gorgeous rose gold that's right there on my pinky swatch. When you take these shades and start playing with them all over the lid and then start coming back the other direction, layering back over them with something like Blowing Smoke down here, or Resurrected Sin, or Devilish Darling down here, or just keep it a brown look. There's a great like milk chocolate brown right here. You will find so much versatility as you shear out some of the deeper shades and layer them up with the shimmers. It surprised me. I wasn't really thinking that I would see a huge must-have palette coming from this line, but I am eager to like bust out a tutorial with this palette for you guys so you can really see what I'm talking about in action. But it is a strong, strong palette. Now, if you're a die-hard cool eyeshadow lover, this may not be for you because there's so much warmth happening here. But if you do like your warm shades and you've been craving that richness of color, it's totally here for you. So guys, I hope that was helpful. Just a little roundup on 4 new-ish palettes from Sephora. I would say my 4th place thing here would be the Crystal Drama. This is the one that I think is lacking the most. Questionable quality on some of the light shades, and we definitely needed some deeper colors in there too. Violet Voss hashtag palette, absolutely stunning array of statement colors, and I think it once again needs more dark colors to come in there and help balance it out and create endless variety potentially. Backtalk palette. I was really pleased with this. I think it's a great everyday grab it and go basic. I really do enjoy the color scheme. I like the quality of the face products as well as the eye products. There are a couple of shadows that I think could have been better. Not saying you can't work with them and create a look with them, but if I had my choice, like I said, a couple of those lighter shades could have been a little bit smoother, richer texture in my opinion. But a real gem here, Phoenix Rising from Pretty Vulgar. I mean, it's gorgeous. It is just so beautiful. If these kinds of colors are up your alley, I think you would absolutely love this palette. No disappointing shades. So thank you guys so much for your time. I had a lot of fun doing this video, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.